Hi everyone, I'm Ed Highland. This is the Big Ideas Theater at AARC Congress, and I'm joined now by Samantha Davis, who's an RT as well as a simulationist. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about congenital heart defects and 3D printing. How did you get into that mix of combinations there?
So I teach neonatal and pediatric respiratory care, and one of the big topics we have to learn about is heart defects. And unfortunately, we don't have any good models to teach that idea to students. They just have to read about it in a textbook, which isn't the greatest way to learn about a heart defect. So I thought, what if we could print the hearts so they could touch them and manipulate them and open them up to actually see the defects and feel the defects. And so that's what inspired all of it.
How does this help the student? I mean, obviously getting a chance to touch and feel is a huge plus, but are you seeing some benefits? You're seeing some of this actually sticking in terms of the teaching method?
Oh yeah, so as part of this, they have to go to what's called the Maker Lab to 3D print their hearts, and the Maker Lab is staffed by student employees who come from a variety of different disciplines, but none of those are respiratory care or even health sciences. So they'll have like a theater major or something like that, and then my respiratory care students have these heart defects. And so they have to communicate with each other about this really complex idea. The student employee knows about computer programming and 3D printing, and the respiratory care student knows about the heart defects, and they have to work together to get this 3D print finalized. And so my students have said that this really challenged them to know the nuances of their defect and to know it in great detail so that they could explain it to someone else.
So literally building the defect, the congenital heart defect from the inside out, sort of thing?
Yeah.
So give us some thoughts, if you would, on how the technology perhaps could be used in health sciences education.
So you can use it to 3D print anatomy like we're doing with the heart defects, or you can use it to print assistive devices. So for example, somebody who has limited mobility in their hands, you can 3D print adjuncts to use with everyday devices so that they have increased mobility. It's used in surgical planning to prepare physicians to do surgery on patients. So they can scan a person and get a real 3D or a real file, digital file from that scan, and then print their heart, their brain, whatever it is that they're going to do surgery on. So there's a great use in medical education, and there's also a great use in health science education.
Now, are they taking actual case studies, actual congenital defects, or to manipulate? So this would be, patient X's heart defect, and how I've been able to understand it better.
Yeah. So actually, the National Institutes of Health hosts a free 3D print exchange, and different hospitals from all over the country and all over the world can upload patient data files, and you can 3D print that file at your local 3D printer.
Now, does this give you an opportunity to talk about the different types? In other words, there's book learning and there's classroom learning and such, but you may be, I guess what I'm going for is non-standardized. In other words, can you come up with the unusual cases, the things that, perhaps in real practice you may or may not come in contact with, but when you do, it won't be a surprise because I saw it in a 3D model.
Yeah, so like I said, on that 3D print exchange, those images come in from places all over the world. So you get some really great digital files that you can use to print. And then most of the defects are on the inside of the heart. So you really need to be able to hold it and to open it up to see the defect. And so that's really a benefit of doing this, using this technology.
That's great. The hands-on experience that you always yearn for.
Yeah. Because you won't get that once you get into the hospital. You can't just open up someone's chest and look inside their heart, right?
They tend to frown on that just a little bit. But at the same time, when that does happen, when you get to a point where you're actually seeing things in real life, it will be, oh, that looks hauntingly familiar because I've seen that defect before.
Yeah, or at least you understand the defect because you printed it before and you were able to play with it before, so you know what's going on behind the scenes.
Do you get into the therapy behind, okay, you have a patient has this particular type of defect, do you get into, well, here's how we normally utilize the tools and equipment we have to help this patient with this defect?
Yeah, and so that's part of the later conversation after they 3D print the defects, is they learn how to manage the defect. defect. So first, by learning what the defect is, they understand the effect that it has on the heart and on the lungs and on the surrounding organs, and then they can figure out how to treat it.
Sounds like fun stuff to do.
Yeah.
As a student, it seems like to be the most interesting and interactive type of program.
Yes.
Samantha Davis, thank you so much for coming by and sharing.
Thank you for having me.
And this is the Big Ideas Theater here at AARC Congress.